Hello, everyone. This is Kishore Dharmarajan with you, and thanks for attending another Saturday Business Podcast. Today, we have a great speaker with us. Let me welcome Meshael Al Blooshi to the podium. And instead of me giving a round of applause or a round of introduction, as is customary to us, we ask the speaker about themselves. So, can you kindly tell us about yourself and your life journey so the audience can get an idea of how it's going to pan forward?
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday and happy weekend. So I hope everyone is enjoying their Saturday morning. Well, about me, my name is Meshael, but I already told everyone if you cannot pronounce my name, you can call me Michelle. I'm a humble Emirati who is very passionate with HR. So I've been in the space of HR for about almost 20 years. I started my career journey at the age of 16, where I've shared this in multiple speaking forums on the um, surprising story, but also it's a memorable story. So basically, just to share it with everyone online who hasn't attended some of my events, is I started my career, one fine day in the summer break. I needed to find something. So my friend told me there is an interview happening for a part-time job in Dubai. It's a telecommunication company. I attended and I went there for the interview, but no one actually welcomed me for the interview. They welcomed me as a full time employee, and my project over there was to actually sell real estate property for one of the leading real estate company. And at the age of 16, reaching your target at the 5,000, 6,000, 8,000, 12,000 on a monthly was amazing. And my boss used to call me Muna, Layla, and her name is Miss Muna. So she keeps calling me Layla, and I just go with the flow because at the age of 16, who knows, right? And the way that we used to call clients is, giving us that, if you remember in the good old days, the telephone yellow book. And I have to call people who are earning 30,000 and above. So I started calling everyone at the letter D, doctors. Um, Fast forward, after 3 months, I went back to my supervisor, Miss Moon, and I told her, um, today is my last working day is because next week I have to go back to school. And she was surprised and she's like, going back to school? What do you mean? I said, well, I need to go back to school because I need to go to high school. I'm starting next week. She said, no, you mean college, right? I said, nope. And then apparently, the actual employee who's supposed to join, her name is Layla, didn't show up and she assumed I was Layla. So it was it was a surprising moment for her, but also for me. But then I had a most enjoyable time. And then fast forward, I started working with ABB Industries in the marketing and communication space, and then I got transferred to HR, and the rest is history.
That is awesome. That's a wonderful story which you have shared, and I'm glad you're sharing stories because nothing communicates value and information as much as stories. So definitely, the audience is going to remember that story for a very long time. Yeah, that's a wonderful way
Sure.
to introduce yourself. Yeah, and to everyone in the audience, if you're taking notes on how to do a great introduction, you've just seen one of the best ways to introduce yourself, which is sharing a story which has got deep insights. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And we come, thank you. And we come to the big question of the day, and this is where you'll be able to spend 10 to 20 minutes to tell us about your industry and what you think are some of the biggest challenges that you are seeing in your industry, taking into consideration that you have got a lot of experience in your industry. Over to you.
Thank you, Kishore. Well, when it comes to challenges, I think as an HR, there are always challenges based on the company they're working for, based on how the companies perceive HR. And I think, the big topic, as we were discussing earlier before we go live, at the present day is about AI adaptation, right? Um, in some companies who actually see HR as an administration function and they're not investing into technology, it's difficult for them to be productive in an efficient way, right? Because they depend on the old school operations of how to do things. However, when certain talent leave that, let's say, particular organization and they want to join another organization, what happened to that particular HR person is that they feel like they're being left out, or they feel like they're not getting anything else within, or they're not getting a new opportunity to work other companies, because the requirement of that particular HR role is that they need to be tech savvy, or they need to get familiar with certain technologies. They need to understand AI. Um, Also, even if you're not leaving the organization, right? The having the adaptation of AI or understanding the actual trend can sometimes help HR individuals to see what are the difference when it comes to skill sets, because we have a lot of people right now, right? There's something called deep fake. When you do this online interview with them and digital interview, but you don't even know if that person is real who you're speaking with. And then the moment you offer them and they join into the organization, someone else, right? Or they are the same person, but someone else is answering for them because they're not confident enough to respond to certain questions online or during interview, and so on and so forth. But the good side is AI can actually help us all those mundane type of job, right? For example, there are certain technology in AI. And this is something I learned from one of my dear friend Javid Khan, who is one of the AI top speakers in the market. um, you can actually ask AI to source or find you the candidates, right? Or to schedule some interviews with you, or to follow up with a hiring manager to provide feedback or scheduling. And that takes a lot of time for a recruiter, right? And for HR, when you're processing payroll, doing the manual job is taking a lot of time. But if you have AI, it could automate it for you. Now, that's one part when it comes to AI adaptation. But another big point I would say also, after the AI is the skill gap. What I noticed in the recent year when I was heading talent acquisition for one of the real estate company is the talent are available. They are there. However, there's a skill gap. Now, we don't understand is the skill gap because they're coming from a different geography, or it doesn't meet the requirement that we're looking into, or we're looking for a particular thing. Now, we need to identify what is skill gap. Is it the behavioral skills or the soft skills, or are we looking actually at the technical skills? And funny enough, technical skills are there, but the behavioral skills is missing, right? The competency that in the behavioral competency is missing. And sometimes, especially if you're going to a in a leadership or managerial or the senior that you go, you need to enhance your EQ, right? And I was quite surprised to see that some people, how they define leadership or how they define management or how they see on managing people, um, um, a lot of are quite micromanagers or authoritative type of leadership. And I'm not saying they're wrong. They're probably exposed to that, or they're probably learned to that. But then study says in this recent year, I mean, especially post the pandemic, leadership need to be embracing sympathy type of leadership or supporting type of leadership, because it is really crucial to understand how to see the talent or the skills of people and help them grow in their career, because that is where true leadership comes from, right? So that is about the skill gap. Another thing about the skill gap is that people need to start learning or invest in their learning, because Yesterday's skills or yesterday's way of working will not be relevant for today or tomorrow, right? So if you know certain system, if you know the certain way of working, if you know the certain way on dealing with a project, it doesn't mean it's going to be relevant for today's need and tomorrow's need, right? And with that, this is where we see skill gap is being evident not just within HR but also across different type of roles. So someone needs to, or the people needs to invest in their continuous learning. Now the third topic, which I would like to dissect this into two category, or the third point of this question. Number one is dealing with the younger generation in our industry. You know, if you go on LinkedIn, you can see a lot of posts saying that how can we manage the younger generation? They do not understand the culture of, of corporate working. And then if you look at the Gen Zs, they said they don't understand us. They don't give us the needs that we need. Just recently, I saw a post on Instagram where a young graduating student, she said that internship needs to be paid, right? Because some companies, when they hire intern, they can get quite um, and I don't want to use the term abusive, but they're overworked for someone who's in the internship role, but then they're never paid for, or they don't get paid for, right? That's one. So this is where the intern or the younger generation feel that, okay, this is not just for my learning, but then I do want to learn but also be rewarded for my learning. It doesn't need to be a salary, but it's also a reward to recognize their effort and work that they're doing in their internship, right? That's one. Number two is that um you know the hiring managers or the corporate field, when they're hiring younger generation, there's a term that they use. It's like they're babysitting, but in reality, if you're hiring anyone who's in the entry level who's learning, it's not about babysitting, but this is where you can show on how good as a manager you are or as a leader you are. Because being a leader, that means you have to pass on the knowledge, and how you teach is, or how you train them is going to be the result of your leadership, whether it's a successful or it's a disaster, right? But the way that the recipient reciprocate to that training and knowledge, that's on them. That's not on the leader. On how they reciprocate and how they apply it in their job, that's on the younger generation, right? So that's another challenge. Now, the second part of this same point, and it's a big topic as we speak, and it became a big topic in May. A lot of people talk about it, and then it will be a big topic by the end of the year: nationalization. And I say it because when I say nationalization, I'm not just talking about emirtization, but in every Gulf country, they have a certain mandatory when it comes to nationalization. And and what is the problem when it comes to nationalization and emirtization? And me myself as an Emirati, I sometimes face this. The silent stereotype if an expatriate is hiring them, right? That is one. What is the common stereotype that they have about Emiratis and nationals? Oh, we're hiring someone who's going to take our jobs. So they become resentful, right? It's not probably intentional, but it's in the back of their head because we're hitting one of the values of that individual about stability or security, right? Um, Number two is about um, they don't know how to interact with the nationals. They do not invest into understanding the culture. I met a lot of people, and I kid you not, people who's been in the organization, let's say 10 years, or they've been in the country 10, 15, 20, and so on and so forth. How many Emiratis have you met or have you interacted with? Not a lot. What do you understand about our culture? Not a lot. What do you know about our traditions? Not a lot. So, and one of them, um, I was really surprised, and they had the audacity to say the companies, the company didn't invest on that. Yeah, but the company is not responsible for you to understand the culture. It is from your own effort to understand the culture. Because this way, when you understand the local culture of the country that you're working for, you would understand how to deal with the locals. Why do you go to China or to Japan? One of the main things is that you're mandated to understand the culture and the language. You need to respect the way of how they're doing things at their workplace, right? Likewise, if you go to Europe, some European countries, it is mandatory for you to understand the language or speak the language for you to enter the workplace. So why don't you apply the same concept when you're coming here to the UAE or any of the Gulf countries to understand the culture, so that you can understand the people and you can understand the way of working, right? um, Another one, and last but not least, is something that I really, really want to talk about, is about um, because of the advance of technology and AI, and people are talking about it nonstop. They want to invest in technology, but they do not want to invest in well-being, which means what? Digital fatigue, burnt out. There's no boundary between personal and professional life anymore. And this is evident when you see in during COVID, right? When COVID hit and we are heavily relying on technology for our day-to-day work, we had no boundary of 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 9 to 6. No, we work beyond that. And then meeting after meeting after meeting without any break is causing digital fatigue. And then after that, when we started going back to the workplace, there was a shift in mindset of people. You know what? I enjoy working from home. I am productive at home. And I did a thorough thesis about this um, for one of the organization. And it's a marketing company, right? There is a big factors when it comes to engagement and productivity when it comes to hybrid and remote working, right? The problem is, where are the main challenges? So we look at different factors over there by using the social exchange theory, as well as the self determination theory, which is SET and SDT, and we looked at the factors: the adjustment post pandemic, the well being, the communication, the productivity and performance, and all of them are high engagement for this particular company. However, the element of performance and well-being is low. Why? When it comes to performance, they don't feel they are fairly evaluated, because people are lost in translation when it comes to structure, especially if you have multi-generational group of people working in an organization, right? Number two is well-being, because they don't have the boundary of fixing their professional and personal life. They are required to be on the clock 24/7, and they are being questioned, if they're not responding to technology, even if it's off duty hours or even if they're off their events and projects, right? And then the most affected people are two generation: the entry level and the younger, which is 18 to 25, and the baby boomers generation. The most highest and the most engaged people are actually the people in the middle management and people who are at the age of 26 to 40 years old. They are highly engaged. Why? Because they have the professional maturity, they have the knowledge of how to use technology. And for this particular diverse group that I have in this organization, they're all educated. That means they have a minimum of bachelor's degree, and they have about around 14% people who has their master's degree. So they're confident of working digitally, and they can manage their digital fatigue. However, it is a moderate result across all the generation, right? So these are the challenges I see currently, what we see in the organization or in the industry of HR. And oh, sorry, I need to add one more point, which I just had a discussion with other HR professional. So we talk about AI adaptation, we talked about skill gap, we talked about nationalization, and we talked about understanding the Gen Z's. But last but not and the digital fatigue. But last but not least is retention, retaining talent, because people are spending a lot on the recruitment, attracting talent, but they're failing when it comes to retention. And a lot of the organizations, especially here in the UAE, I'm not sure about the other countries, they don't understand why, right? Yes, they do exit interviews, they do their onboarding process, but they actually analyze the data of why? And that is something that we as an HR professional, we need to look at beyond what is the current company, but then look at for future proofing, because retaining talent is the key of our success when it comes to HR. Retaining engaged and productive talent is something that we strive to always achieve for the organization. And if we don't look at the retention, then we're failing in what we're doing as an HR professional.
That's a wonderful range that you have shared here with the audience. We knew that there are such multitude of problems in the HR. We
Yeah.
have always seen this as a section where your hiring happens, CV screening, interviews, and so forth. So the general audience is not aware of the depth of services which are required in the HR sector. And thanks for bringing that up. That will be very useful for the audience. And now we come to the third question in our series, which is since we have identified all these challenges, what do you think are the biggest opportunities that you are seeing in the HR industry in 2025 and forward?
Okay. Thank you. So the key word of the sub points is elevating HR. Elevating HR as a strategic partner of the organization, and elevating the data of HR to understand how to improve it, right? So this is the main thing we need to look at it, because the other points that I'll be sharing is all related to, that's only okay, or that's possible to do it if the organizations, or even as an HR professional, put a very distinct identity of them, that we are a strategic partner. We are not just an administration department, and we're not collecting data for the sake of audit or audit check, etc. No, we are the strategic partner. We're leveraging the data that we have in order to fix the areas that we need to fix, to future proof the organization for any disruption that might happen in the future, right? So that's a key thing that we need to look at. Now, with that, when people actually look at the data, or HR actually looks at the data, this is where they're going to understand that this is where we need technology, and this is how we can leverage AI to enhance our productivity and our performance when it comes to mundane admin work, right? So leveraging technology is key. And then we need to also look at what I mentioned earlier, which is the offboarding data. Why people are leaving when it comes to retention? Is it the salary? Is it the working hours? Is it يعني what are the main reasons that people leave? Is it because of their leaders, of their managers? You know, these are the things that we need to look at on as an analytical point of view, so that we can enhance. And with that, we need to consider taking well-being as part of the strategy. When I say well-being, it's not just the overall engagement strategy, but well-being when it comes to actually taking care of the people, right? Not taking care when it comes to financial. No, it's not just a financial aspect of it, but then the well-being strategy is about, let's look at, does the time in time out really benefit us? If that person shows up to work at 7 sharp and they leave work, let's say at 6 in the evening, what is the productivity level that they're offering to the organization? Is it actually beneficial for us? Yes or no? That's a question we need to ask, right? If we do the hybrid or remote working and we offer them that flexibility, because um, the what a person needs for them to operate efficiently is trust, being related, and their commitment, right? So if you trust the employee that they can get their productivity or they can get the job done, perfect. If you give them the relatedness that they can relate to the bigger objective, that's amazing, because that's inclusivity, right? And if you provide them that you're committed towards them, then that they will reciprocate to give it back, right? That's the basic human relationship of giving and taking and giving, right? Now, with the hybrid work as well, is to also look at the development. When again, people think well-being is all about, giving them education allowance or giving them, removing the time in time out, etc. No, no, no. Well-being factors so many other stuff, right? The resource that they get access to, the work office that you're actually giving them, the lighting, the how purified the air is, right? How much you clean the carpet, that's all part of it. The break times that you give them, the management or leading how to deal with people, that's all part of well-being. That's all part of engagement. How do you actually create their performance, or how do you put the goals, or how does the manager deal with the employee? That's part of well-being as well, because that is factoring in mental health, right? So that's something that HR needs to look at. So well-being, technology, and then we also need to start redefining how leadership is. So the L&D part, learning and development of HR. When they understand what is the culture of the organization, what do they need, not now but for the future, they need to start redefining leadership, because the leadership are the people who influences the rest of the team to work towards a certain goal. So redefining leadership, meaning that eliminate the whole authoritative type of leadership. um, I say you do, right? My way or the highway. That's not going to be working anymore, especially for the younger generation, right? You need to give them the autonomy for them to actually work, for them to actually be productive, and for them to be creative. So we need to introduce a new way of how to be a more empathetic leadership, or how to improve their EQ level when dealing with people, right? When it comes to coaching, mentorship, right? That is something that we actually need to look at, because people who actually have this advantage or have access to this type of learning are actually just the top leadership. Sometimes they neglect the middle management, where they have the heavy or the most people that they're managing, and they suffer, right? We also need to look at something that is really, really important, is about talent attraction, not just global, but also local. And I think that the UAE is doing that very well, because they're not just attracting talent to be working for the organization, they're attracting talent to be an investor. But then, now, aside of the global, we need to look at the local. And that is where I'm going back to the nationalization, amortization, right? How would you access that talent pool? HR professionals, or anyone actually who's an expat in the UAE, understand the UAE culture, or the GCC country that you're part of. Be part of the community. If you don't know, just strike just strike a conversation with a local and understand the culture. Ask questions; they're more than happy to share. Because the moment you have that community, or the moment you have access to that community, then you will get the access to the talent pool that you need within that local community. I have a lot of people, they've been a recruiter here for a really, really long time. And they're from the agency, not even from the companies, from the agencies. They come and reach out to me if I know, someone who's an Emirati who has X amount of experience in this type of field. And it's funny is because you're an agency. That's part of your job. You're a headhunting agency. You have to have that resources. But they forgot to actually interact with the local. What happened is they interact with their own people, right? So the Asian community is with the Asian community, the European is with the European. Um, Sometimes they mix, or expat mix to with expat, but for some reason, I don't know what is the fear factor that they are unable to interact with the locals. So this is something we really need to look at, because that's how you're going to have an effective way of tracking or attracting the right talent pool for the organization, not just on a global scale, but also from a local scale. Um, Next is about um, when HR has the whole data, revise your policy, because when we look at HR policies, they only update it when there is an if there's um, a change from the Ministry of Human Resources or the local authority. That's the only element that they change. But then updated what is relevant on the overall market trend, not just the law, right? And that is something that needs to be frequently looked at. And that will only happen if we actually look at the data that we have existing in the HR, especially when it comes to the offboarding or the people who are leaving the organization. Um, Last but not least is benchmark, not against your competitor, but actually the leading organization in the market, locally or globally. What happens is that when we benchmark, let's say an organizer wants to benchmark best practice for a particular project, they usually look at their competitors. They don't go beyond that. Therefore, maybe that competitor is not doing the best practice, right? It's just one step above than what they're currently doing as an organization. They actually need to start looking at the bigger dimension. I remember um, back in 2017 and 18, Amazon, Google, Tesla, Disney, everyone wants to do their case study based on these companies, and they're benchmarking with these companies. Why? It's because they did something non-traditional. They have offered their employees with a non-traditional working environment. Is it a success? No, maybe. I don't know, right? But it depends on the company need and the leadership vision and how to reach the performance that they need. So, for example, the UAE, right? They're embracing AI, right? But then when they're advancing their stuff with the AI, the company needs to start understanding AI, but then how would it leverage, not just because the trend says so, but then they need to look at it based on the suitability and the functionality for their particular business. So it's not one size fits all. It's based on the need, on the and the suitability, as well as the efficiency for the particular business that they're part of. We cannot just say, hey, you know what, so and so company has used this system, let's just apply the same. No, it doesn't work that way. And then start leveraging ChatGPT. The UAE has already provided free access for ChatGPT, and there's multiple ways of how to use ChatGPT. For an organization, you can actually build your own chatbot that could, for HR policy, for example, you can actually build a chatbot for your company through ChatGPT without understanding coding, right? I learned this from LinkedIn Learning, and I've done my own chatbots for the organization I was part of. It is very easy, and it's a simple command that you need to teach ChatGPT. For example, if people wants to understand how to interview a candidate, what are the certain questions for this particular role, and you want it to be linked and aligned to the competencies and value of the organization, just provide the command in writing. That's one. Number two, if an employee has a question about HR policy and they cannot reach, let's say in a weekend, for example, everyone is off, right? And your HR person cannot be reached out, and you have a question about the policy, and they cannot access for some reason their HRMS through their mobile or through the system, but they can at least access ChatGPT and ask the question to get the result, right? So it actually improve and enhance how we operate. So these are the opportunities I see HR can look at, especially if they want to keep up with the trend and they want to attract the right talent in their organization.
That's really good. And one of the advantages of doing sessions like this is we have also moved from HR to AI and given tips on how people working in the HR industry can actually use
Yes.
generative AI and get ahead. So it's very comprehensive, and I'm glad you have shared a lot of valuable information with our audience. And now
Thank you.
we come to the next question, which is for people entering the workplace in 2025. It is a very different place than, let's say, people entering the workplace in 2010. It's very, very different. So, as an HR expert with so many years of experience, what advice would you give to people who are entering the workplace in 2025?
Great question. And funny is I got a lot of these questions from so many people. Like just a few days ago, I got a call from someone and said, "Can you help me, because I'm already a very senior person in HR and I still want to grow, but I don't seem to find the right job, right? They're working with an existing company and that company is shutting down and they have difficulty to find a senior job or to get out." And the first thing I mentioned is personal branding. So, personal branding is important because let's just be honest. How much can a recruitment or a recruiter comprehend the information that is being written in the CV? Especially if they get thousands and thousands and thousands of application, and that application will only be looked at if you have the right keywords that matches the job description, right? Even if you have, let's say, someone from that organization that you connect with and share your profile, and then that person refer the profile to HR, depending on how influential they are, right? And yet you don't get a call or you're not suitable because, again, maybe there are certain things on your CV that doesn't match the job role, right? So why is personal branding important? Because the more senior you go, personal branding is applicable to all level, right? But the more senior you go, the more that you need to put it out there, because you need to be recognized, not just because, oh, that person is so and so from X organization, right? So, for example, oh, no, that's Michelle. She's the head of talent for, let's say, Nakhil. No, you don't need that identification, that how people actually know you. People need to know is that, oh, that's Michelle. She's actually a good talent expert, an HR expert, who shares a lot of different stories on LinkedIn, or she's really good this, or she's really good that, or she's an Emirati HR who can actually do this, right? You don't need to be associated with the corporate that you're working for, but you need to be known for the skills what you can bring on the table. And the CV will not provide that for you. So when it comes to personal branding, how to do it? Number one is find your network, right? Find your network community that is really going to be impactful for you. That doesn't mean, let's say, if you're in the real estate industry, do not stick with the real estate community. Get out, venture it out. For example, I attended your event and they're all digital marketeers or digital marketing professionals and entrepreneurs. Then I met you at another event, which is not an HR event. It is more for entrepreneurs and people who has their own company and SMEs, right? And I have widened up my network. And this is how I got to this platform to be hosted in your podcast, right? Likewise, for people who wants to enter the job, find a community or ask people to introduce you to that community and get to know people. Now, if you are more confident and you have something that you can share that would be very important to the people or the audience of that community, present, speak up. If you cannot do public speaking, leverage your social media account, right? Especially LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn, no one is going to judge you. Yes, they might put some comments, but usually LinkedIn is very positive that people leave comments on, right? Share your story, share a certain topic. You saw something, share it, write about it, and see the engagement of people. And that will create momentum, right? So this is really, really important when it comes to personal branding because um, how do, for example, models and actors and the creative people being cast? It's through their social media, like Instagram. Instagram is the main page for them to find those talents who they would like to, let's say, put in a certain movie or a certain shows, etc. They don't go to agencies anymore. Now they approach them directly to Instagram. Same concept on a professional way. You can use and leverage through LinkedIn or attend professional communities and widen your influence across these communities, people to know you, right? So that's about that personal branding. Number two is continuous learning, right? When I say continuous learning, is that don't be stuck and say, I have experience with this and I'm good with this, I'm good with that. Your knowledge of today might not be relevant for tomorrow. Your knowledge of yesterday will not be relevant for today or tomorrow. So keep learning. Whether it's technical, whether it's behavioral, whether it's EQ, IQ, whatever, keep learning. Because the more you keep your brain simulated with the new learnings and opportunities in the market, the more you're going to be more adaptive with the requirement of work in the future. Maybe what you're doing right now, if you're, let's say, for example, let's say you're currently an HR business partner, right? Very generic. But if you keep learning about culture or you keep learning about certain technology, if you keep learning about certain things, in the future they may not need an HR business partner. They need an expert, and you might be called the culture architect of an organization. So this is how I see the future going. Next is people entering the workplace is start looking for mentors, coaches. Do not rely only from your manager, or yeah, because a lot of the issues sometimes, depending how lucky you are of your relationship of who's going to be your manager, that differs from one person to another. Some has great experience, some has the worst experience, right? And sometimes when we have the worst experience with someone, we tend to start retaliating in very different ways, right? We gossip, we do this, we do that, we speak to the family, and then, just because they want to support it, they amplify the whole negativity. Is that right? Maybe yes, maybe no, we don't know. But then having a mentor is someone you seek, or you're inspired by their character, that you seek their advice, someone you can actually speak to and share things that you're unable to share with other people, and they can give you the logical response based on their experience, right? And if you have the capability, find yourself a professional coach. That helped me a lot in my career. Mentorship and professional coach. The reason I got active on my LinkedIn, because my professional coach said, basically what happened with me is that I left the last organization I was with without a backup plan. I just needed to take some rest. I needed to take a break. It was very exhausting. I reached to the point, as a human being, I have a limit, right? So I reached to the point I really need a break. But then anxiety hit me. Like I didn't know what to do next, because I always have a backup plan. This is the nature that I have in me. Ever since I was young, I always have a backup plan to do certain things. And then this is the first time in my entire life that, oh my God, I'm going into the unknown, and it scares me. So when I had the conversation with professional coach, he specifically told me, snap out of it, Michelle. I like, what? He's like, leverage your LinkedIn account. You have a lot of followers. I said, yeah, but they are, my followers follow me just because I have a recruitment title on my page. That's why people follow me, right? It's like, never mind. Just, post something, leverage it, use it, because that will take you places, right? You will also gauge on how people interact with you based on you as an individual. So this is where my personal branding comes into the picture. I did my first post in Feb this year, and I was shocked. I got a high number of impression in less than a minute, and then people started interacting with me, and so on. Then I decided, okay, let me do some posting. Let me more do some posting, and I get a lot of interaction and impression on my post. That lead me to getting invited to different events and community where I started speaking, and that amplified my position, and I got to get exposed to different people. um uh, this week, in the last 2 weeks, basically, I got 5 messages on LinkedIn, and some calls as well. People would like me to speak about Emirati Women's Day at their event on the 28th of August, right? Unfortunately, I wouldn't be here because I'm traveling, but and some of them are actually paid. Like they would like to pay me to speak. And I was a bit surprised. Like, I would love to do things, but I didn't expect that people want me to be there. Um, and I realized, I was like, oh, wow. Just because of my postings on LinkedIn and people started seeing me, I'm able to reach into, getting invited to be a key speaker in their events. So that's something that we need to actually look at. Seeking mentors, having a coach, and then see how does it help you in your career, because you always need someone else to speak with openly, who doesn't know you on a personal level, who will give you sense, logical sense on how to do certain things. Um, Next is for people entering the workplace. I mentioned this earlier, do not rely on the manager only, have a mentor, have a coach, but also do not rely on the manager or the company who would design your career path. At the end of the day, you as an individual, you own your career. So you need to design your career rather than just doing your job, right? How many, like as an HR professional, especially, towards end of the year, and I think a lot of HR professionals would relate with me. How many times have we heard employees say, I didn't get the right rating, my manager isn't fair. Oh, I didn't get promoted for the past 3 years. Oh, this, oh, that. They didn't put me on training, or didn't do this, or didn't do that. Why throw the ball in the court of the manager when you can actually ask for it, right? Go back to your employee handbook, And people always neglect that. They join the company, boom, they read the employee handbook for one day and they ignore it. And when HR sends an email, no one reads it, right? But pay attention to those, because some of those will actually benefit you as an individual. Learning and development, you can actually do it. You don't need HR, you don't need your manager, you don't need the company to do it. You do it. Invest in yourself. It's your self investment, right? Don't just invest in properties or Bitcoin or the invest in yourself, because that is how you're going to be, more matured and more understanding, more knowledgeable when it comes to certain things, right? Number two is put a goal. you know um, there is something called the law of attraction, right? You have basically the law of attraction is, you visualize things that you would like to attract and happen to you. And in simple words, just have a goal in your head, like, I want to be this in X amount of time, right? And boom, it will happen, right? Because why? You're now committed to work towards that goal to make it happen. Why do we have goal setting and KPIs in the organization? Is because for you to achieve it and we work towards it, right? But then we do the professional goal or the business goal that is required for us, but then we neglect our professional goal or our personal goal. How can we do those operational goals if we don't have a goal for ourselves to achieve it, right? So my advice to those who is actually going through, I think some of them are still finishing up their mid-year review, change it, and see that, okay, now that I have less than 5 months, almost 4 months left till the end of the year, adjust if you don't have one, create your personal goal to achieve the remaining KPIs or goals that you have till end of the year. That is going to be not just satisfactory for the organization, but also satisfactory for yourself, for self-development, right? And then last but not least is just be human. Acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge your presence, do the basic human thing. Do, because we're so invested in using phones, technology, especially the younger generation, right? They do gamings, they do their own social media. They forgot the basic human interaction, how to start a conversation, how to build relationship. um, to the point I'm a bit surprised that people are heavily invested of, having a relationship with the AI. Like there was an article I've seen that people are having an AI boyfriend girlfriend, and it's like, excuse me, right? The beauty of being a human is that we can actually build meaningful connections and interactions with the living things around us, whether with a human, whether with a plant, whether with an animal. Just be human, because sometimes that's what the world needs. Technology is part of our day-to-day operations for us to do our job or for us to do certain things. But then imagine one day if all the networks are down and there's no electricity. How would you entertain yourself? How would you strike a conversation with people, right? Technology is useful, but then it's a double-edged sword. It makes us feel um, insecure. It makes us judge people. It makes us sometimes see things in a very shallow way. But then when you have a real connection, a real conversation with a human, sometimes it's really entertaining because you get to learn their background, their experience, and that is something valuable that no technology can pay for, right? So that is my advice for people entering the workforce, and just be yourself at the end of the day.
That's very profound advice which you have given. So you have gone through the whole gamut of branding, finding a mentor, being human. So there's actually a lot which our audience can learn from this, and people will definitely take notes from
Mm.
them. And Now we come to the last question of our discussion. If people find the discussions to be interesting and they want to learn more, how can they reach out to you? Do you have a blog or social handles on which people can follow?
Yeah. I don't have other social handle. People can reach me out on LinkedIn. They can just type my name, Meshael Al Blooshi, and they'll find me. You can message me, you can comment on my post, and I'm happy to answer as much as I can. But you need to bear with me because sometimes I get a lot of messages and I'm unable to sift it through. So you can see me there. You can also keep an eye on the events that I'll be attending. So you can, it's again on my LinkedIn post where I post certain posts where I mention I'm going to be attending this event as a speaker. Once you see me or once you attend those events and you interact with me, I'd be more than happy to say hi and answer any questions that they need. So that's how they can actually find me.
Wonderful. Michelle, it has been a pleasure hosting you for the Saturday Business Podcast. You're the first Emirati speaker that we have had, and also the first Emirati HR expert. And the kind of information that you have shared with our audience is very profound. And I'm sure they'll find a lot of value from following that. Great insights filled with nuggets of wisdom as well as actionable items. So, thank you once again for all the information that you have shared and for your time today. Thank you very much. And if you have any
Thank you.
parting words to our audience, feel free to express that.
All right. So, my parting words, those who are currently on the screen, on the phone, listening to us or watching this, take a moment, take a breather. It's okay, right? If no one appreciates you, appreciate yourself. Um, and at the end of the day, try to understand, who you are, what do you need by writing it down or having a vision board. Because no one is actually chasing us, right? Um, what's chasing us is our own judgmental. So have that vision board there, reflect, understand your needs, write it down, and do short goals. And if you fail, don't beat yourself up, celebrate it, and move on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And once again, have a great rest of the day and see you all in our next session. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks so much.